3.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. First of all, let me thank you all for coming here today. As you can see on the screen, our topic today is how Romanian companies are developing secure applications on Microsoft Azure. My talk is particularly relevant for those of you who are working with Microsoft Azure products, services, or you are building applications on top of it. I don't know about you, but at least in my case, every few days or weeks, I'm hearing or I'm involved or I'm working on some security aspects of cloud applications that are running on top of Microsoft Azure. And there are a lot of concerns, there are a lot of things that we need to tackle, we need to take into consideration. Let me start by saying a few words about my own background. My name is Radu Vunvulea. I'm working for Endava as Group Head of Cloud. And I started the journey. I started the cloud journey in 2010. My first production environment on Azure went live in 2010. And starting from then, I was enjoying the journey with ups and downs, working especially on Microsoft Azure and also on AWS. I'm also a Microsoft Regional Director of Microsoft Azure MVP. Now, why we're talking about this topic and what are the things that are relevant? Now, what I've done in the last 15, 18 months was I was talking with different local companies, around 24, 25 different local companies from Romania, trying to get their feedback related to cloud, related to Microsoft Azure, and what are the security tools that they are using and how they're integrating them. What I found out is that around 40% of them are using security tools that are integrated with their CI/CD pipelines. That's a pretty good number. I was impressed about that. What was a little bit shocking is that only 10% of them are aware and are doing something practically related to open source software vulnerabilities for their pre-production environment and for the environments that are used for live. Now, talking about Azure DevOps, most of the local companies that are using Azure or have at least one application that is running on top of Microsoft Azure, they are using also Azure DevOps, especially for the pipelines, for the CI/CD, and so on. Now, most of the greenfield systems that we are starting now and or we are migrating to cloud are based on containers, especially. And around 25% of companies are aware of security concerns that they might have through containers, through the images of the containers, and they are doing actively different checks, different integrity checks to ensure that there are no vulnerabilities. So basically they are scanning them through different tools, manually or automatically. OAuth is something that all of us, we are aware of. And around 4 of 5 companies are doing proactive scanning of their web application. Now, what I found interesting here, that in most of the cases, almost all the tools that we are talking to, that we will talk to today and we are covering, most of them are used especially during the development phase. Not too many of them are used once you go live, even if, for example, package vulnerabilities is something that is relevant also when you are already in production. What is our agenda? What are the main topics that I would like to cover? First of all, I would like to talk a little bit about cloud breaches, especially in 2022, and where we are at this moment in time. After that, we will take a look on security concerns that we need to be aware. And after that, for the rest, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, we'll talk about top 5 development security tools that I identified that are used by local Romanian companies to build more secure application on top of Microsoft Azure. If you don't mind, I like to leave questions until the end of my talk. There will be time for the Q&A session. So if you have any kind of question, feel free to drop them in the chat. Okay, so let's start. Statistics show that in the last 18 months, 4 of 5 companies have experienced at least one cloud data breach. 80% of companies that are using cloud already had a cloud data breach in the last 18 months. The number is huge. And what is more impressive is that almost half of them reported 10 or more breaches in that given period of time, in the last 18 months. And these numbers are huge. It means that we don't do enough to ensure that we are building secure application. We don't do enough to secure the application and to provide security sustainability processes through all the phases of development and of the application lifecycle. Taking into account that in 2022, 92% of organizations are currently hosting at least some of their environment in the cloud, we could translate this that most of the business today have already experienced a breach, a cloud breach. Now we need to be very careful how we point out this cloud breach, this data security breach, because in most of the cases, or in all the cases that I'm aware of, the main cause was a misconfiguration of some cloud services, making them publicly, lacking of encryption or different security measure, or by not following the best practices and recommendation that each cloud vendor is providing. There was a public forum that ran for a few months on the public internet, gathering information about what are the top challenges with public cloud. What are the issues where companies are struggling from the business, from the technical point of view, and so on. What they found out is that 4 of 5 items are related to security, except controlling cloud cost, basically the cloud economics part. All the rest of the things that were reported were related to security, data privacy and different security challenges, protecting cloud resources, compliancy, governance, and lack of cloud security skills and expertise, because also it is pretty hard to find people with skills or that are aware of all the cloud security concerns that you need to be aware and you need to tackle to be able to build a secure solution. When we're talking about cloud security, there are a lot of layers, a lot of views that we need to tackle. We are talking about identity and access management, networking, file, data, workload, application security, and we don't need to forget about container security. All of them have different aspects of security that needs to be tackled as a group or in different subgroups or one by one. Today, especially, we will cover application security and container security, and we'll take a look on what are the tools that are used by local Romanian companies and how they are using them. Because many of the tools have a lot of features, a lot of capabilities, but it doesn't mean that we are using all of them. One of the best solutions that you tackle and you should consider to be able to secure your cloud system is through security policies. Especially in Microsoft Azure, through policies, you can ensure that you have that minimal governance layer and you restrict access and you have a control on how different things are used, from data security to storage security, workload security, how different services are configured, and so on. And on top of that, through the policies themselves, you also have control to the compliancy, to the governance layer, and even to the DR and business continuity plan and things like that. Security should be part of your software delivery lifecycle. If you take a look on the DevSecOps ways of working, you will find 4 different items that you need to consider, you need to take into account. First is analyze, where you identify exactly what are the security areas, what are the security tasks that you want to tackle, you find a solution and how you should implement it. The second one is basically to secure, basically to do the fix or to do some improvements. The third one is verify. And I would say that on verify, we are relying a lot on the tools, but we are forgetting that it should be part of the day-to-day testing that we are doing to our applications, to our system. And the last one is defend, where we need to ensure that we have the tools, we have the monitoring systems that can allow us to gather all the information, to process them, to crunch them, and to give us inputs and reports related to what kind of security concerns we should tackle, where we might have a breach, or if we already have a breach, to be able to identify what went to the public internet, what was accessed, and how. Microsoft Defender is a very good example here, and together with Azure Monitoring and Application Insights and so on, there are a lot of set of tools that allow us to build more secure applications, but we need to use them and we need to be aware of them. Now, let's go a step back. Let's not talk too much about the Azure services that are provided. Let's talk about the tools that can be used to build more secure Azure applications and how we can identify if something is misconfigured. The first tool that I would like to talk today is Black Duck. Now, Black Duck is a great tool, especially if you're using, and I'm more than sure that most of us, we are using open source software or packages built by different third parties and so on. These packages are very useful. It can spin up the speed or how fast we are delivering our application to the market and so on. But also they can hide different issues that could be used by somebody to access our system or to put hands on different items. So Black Duck is a system that is able to do automatically scanning and also to provide us informations related to any kind of security issues that were identified in the libraries that we are using. On top of that, it can do automatically checks if we are comply with the open source licenses that are for the package and so on. How it is used in most of the cases, Black Duck by local companies is especially it is integrated in the CI/CD pipelines inside Azure DevOps, running every night and or before the release, making the check. I was not able to see companies, local companies that are integrated Black Duck with code sites from Visual Studio, meaning that they would run them locally on their own machines. What I really like at Black Duck is their dashboard. They have very nice and easy to understand dashboards, very similar to the one that we can find on Microsoft Defender, meaning that you don't need to be a technical person to be able to understand them, to be able to identify if there are any kind of risk and concerns that you should tackle and what you should do to be able to cover them. How Black Duck is integrated, and let's start with an example where we have the GitHub repo, we have our Azure DevOps, and we have our pipelines. As I said, by the pipelines themselves, Black Duck is called and is used. What we should do more if we use Black Duck or similar products, also to not forget about production environment and to ensure that every, let's say, 1 week, every day, every month, or at a specific period of time, we are also scanning the artifact that we are using in production environment. Black Duck is able to do automatically scanning also on libraries that are already released, basically in the binary packages, and he can look inside them to see what kind of packages we are references, if there are any kind of vulnerabilities reported to them, and also to provide us any alerts if a vulnerability was reported. And why this is very important? Because a vulnerability might not be reported until we go live with a specific version of our system, but after 1 month or 1 year, we can end up with a lot of vulnerabilities on the specific packages, and we need to ensure that we have the mechanism that could identify the vulnerability, and maybe we would do an update of the package, or in worst case, to decide that we would need to replace it with something else. The second tool that is widely used by local Romanian companies is SonarQube. Now, if you're a developer or application developer, you might use already SonarQube to get different KPIs related to what is the technical depth, what is the complexity level of the code that you've written, and so on. On top of that, SonarQube has the ability to do scanning of your code and to detect different security vulnerabilities, or even OAuth scanning to the API that we expose, and so on. In most of the cases, SonarQube is used for OAuth scanning and also to do scanning of the code and to identify what security rules were not respected that are related to the programming language like C#. So SonarQube is able to scan your code and to identify which areas of the code are not following the policies and the critical security aspects that you should follow. For example, you are not doing encryption, you are using in clear text a connection string or some tokens, and so on. What we should do more on SonarQube, and I think that is very important because it would allow us also to do upskilling and to educate our team, is security hotspots. What does this mean? SonarQube has a feature to be able to identify which area of codes is security related or might be security related, and the 4I principle needs to be applied, meaning that beside the person that written the code, somebody else should take a look on the code and review the code. So through security hotspots, SonarQube can automatically request a security review from somebody else from the team, or somebody from another team, or from the organization that you are part of. It's a very good way to ensure that you do upskilling of your team, because if all the security section would be written only by senior people, how you would educate, how you would grow the juniors from the security point of view? Security hotspot can be used to invite the junior people in the team to take a look on the security code that was written and to review it and to learn through examples. How SonarQube is most of the time used by local companies is especially integrated inside Azure pipelines, and in some of the cases is also used on the local development machines. What I notified, especially for smaller companies or for smaller teams, they already have Sonar integrated in Visual Studio, but when the team are larger, let's say 4 or 5 teams of 10 or 12 different people, or for larger organization, SonarQube is part of the CI/CD pipeline, but not so often. It's part of the local development configuration machine. The third tool that I would like to talk about, and I see that is very widely used, is HostedScan. HostedScan security. I really like it. I don't know if you had the opportunity to use it until now. It also has a free tier that we'll take a look in a few moments. It is able to do 24/7 vulnerability scanning for all public endpoints if you're using the free tier, or also for private endpoints if you're using the premium tier. And automatically creates a dashboard where he let you know that some vulnerabilities were identified, can automatically send alert, and you can specify exactly if you want to follow specific industry scanning rules like OAuth, or to do port scanning and so on, or you can define your own rules. Now, I played a little bit a few days ago with it, and I've done two things. As you can see, Monday I've done a scan on știrile.ro. It was a website that I think that in 2020 especially was used by most of us to check what is happening with COVID in Romania and so on. As you can see, it identified two medium risks from the security point of view: missing anti-clickjacking header and absence of anti-CSPF tokens. That's a pretty nice output. For each of it, we have a short description and all the public endpoints that were identified with this problem. What else I've done? Also, I've run the same free scanning on local healthcare insurance company, Casa Națională. .ro, and what the tool found out that we have one high security state related to view states, and around 3 to 4 medium risk. And also you can see exactly what are the endpoints that were identified. Also, there are more information, but what I want to point out is very, very easy to use. You can even use the free tier if your endpoints are public, or you can use the premium one. How HostedScan is used by the local companies? In most of the cases, they are scanning the pre-production and testing environment, and it's not all the time integrated in the pipeline themselves. It's, for example, is used to run the endpoints before doing a release or during the final test. And only 2 or 3 companies I found that they are using HostedScan also for public environments, basically for production environments, to ensure that there are no new security aspect that they should tackle on the API that is exposed. I think it's about tools that are giving us the ability to scan for secrets in our repository. That can be the code, application code, or the ARM template, the code formation, the Terraform scripts, and so on. One of the most used one is Git secrets. This is very, very easy to use. You just need to run 2 different command lines in PowerShell in PowerShell for example, and you can integrate it very easily on your own development machine or through the CI/CD pipelines. Now, you can use it in different ways. I've seen a very nice way of using it, meaning that in the case of somebody was trying to do a push, automatically his secret was running, and if he would identify that the secret was part of that commit, automatically it will reject it. Also, if that person was trying to was doing the same mistake for 3 times in was disabled, so he had to go to the project manager or to the IT team to request that his account to be activated. Now, there are a lot of tools on the market, and this is why I've seen that many companies are using different tools. I put it here a list of 9 different tools that I found interesting and very used. And I would like to mention a few of them. The first one that we already talked is Git secrets, followed by Spectral Ops. I really like Spectral Ops, and why? Because of the UI. It's providing you such a great UI that can be used to identify what are or to identify exactly what kind of secrets were used where and so on. And if you need to do a fast MVP, go with Git all secrets. It's not perfect, but for a POC or if you have an internal internship, Git all secrets would be very, very useful. How it is used? Most of the time, it is part of the pipelines and is doing scanning of any kind of push that would go to the repo. What you need to do all the time to ensure that the secrets will not hit the repo. That's the main purpose of it. The last tool that I would like to talk about today is Azure Tenant Security Solution. It's not a tool, basically, it's a framework that Microsoft Azure is providing. I was very excited to find for two companies that were aware of it and they were using. And basically, it is allowing you and is allowing us to do a scanning across subscription or multiple subscription under the same tenant for policies, for configuration, and what kind of information are reported by Microsoft Defender, by the different information from resource group and manage group. Basically, it creates you a dashboard that you can manage and you can have a high-level overview through all your subscription. It is running as an app service in one of the subscriptions that you are using. Now, talking about it, you would need to run on top of all your systems, let's say the ones that are running on Azure, and would give you the high-level overview from the security point of view of all the systems. It's pretty easy to configure, works pretty nice. I highly recommend you to take a look because the framework itself also comes with some default policies and configuration that you can use pretty easily. The last thing that I want to remember, and I hope that all of us we know about it, the one that we are using Microsoft Azure, is role-based access control. And why? When we are doing any kind of access control to different services that are hosted inside Azure, please don't use tokens. Please don't use username and password. Rely on role-based access control as much as possible. You have a security principal, can be a person or can be another Azure service. You specify exactly what are the roles, what are the attributes that you are allowing to do, and also the scope can be on an instance of a resource, can be a resource group, and so on. Basically, this is how you are defining and you are doing a role assessment. Please use more role-based access control and less username and password or any kind of other similar tools like that. Now, don't forget that on Microsoft Azure website, on the documentation side, you will find a lot of references related to DevSecOps. I just given here two examples. Take a look on them. Take a look on all the recommendations before starting to implement security and the pipelines that you will need to build for your applications. Finally, my final thoughts for today are especially related to resources that can be used to do upskilling and to educate our team from the cloud security point of view. Please be aware all the time about well-architectured framework that's provided by Microsoft. Don't try to read all the pages. If you are covering security, just take a look on the security concerns that you need to be aware and best practices, and also isolate the ones that are related to the services that you are planning to use. Also, there's a lot of security documentation. This is worth to take a look during your free times, and also take a look on DevSecOps in Azure. They're providing nice list of tools and how you can integrate them and what are the tools that you should use for different aspects. If you are talking about certifications, Azure Security Engineer Associate and Azure Solution Architect Expert are two certifications that are very useful from the security point of view. And of course, the developer and DevOps ones are very, 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 very relevant. Now, if you want to read the book, I highly recommend to look for Mastering Azure Security, and also I provided the link on Amazon website. This is a great book that is covered the most important security aspect for each service that you would use, that you are using from from cloud. Now we are at the end. Thank you for listening me, and let's take a look on the questions that we had until now. One question is why we should use HostedScan security while Azure monitoring it is in place for cloud infrastructure. Well, HostedScan security can do a full scan of our all web endpoints to identify exactly what might be the security risks that we can have on our web endpoints. Can be the one that we are using to publish a web page or to our REST APIs, and can generate automatically reports telling us exactly what we are not doing the right way and how we could solve it. It's basically giving us a report versus Azure monitoring that is used to collect logs information, to collect different metrics, to be able to know exactly how the application, how the system behaves. I don't see any kind of questions that are technical related, but if you have later on a security question or cloud question, or you would like to have a chat with me, feel free to contact me over Twitter or LinkedIn, and let's have a chat. Thank you for joining this session, and have a great day. Bye bye.